Okay, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. First thing on our agenda is public input, and I do see we have guests here. Do you have anything you would like to say this evening? All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Well, we're glad you're here and appreciate you participating in your government. Next up is consider the approval of minutes from the September 7th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes, or do we have any corrections that need to be made?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
May I have a second? 50 seconds. All those in favor? All right. So next up is we're going to go right into our subcommittee reports. So the first one is the charter subcommittee, and I believe that's Mike and I, right? For the scope of the charter.
And Mary, I believe.
Oh,
And she's not here yet.
okay.
She wasn't at the first meeting.
Okay. So Mike and I met just a few minutes ago, and we have not had a chance to go through and look at all of the information that other cities do. One of the things that I thought was important as a charter review member is that if council is going to ask for me to participate in something, I think it is important that I can allow free expression of what I think is important. In the actual charter, I actually did go into the charter review in the actual home rule charter. And if you look at like page 31, the term of office of the commission shall not be for more than 6 months. So I believe that time limit is a limitation in itself. So I don't know why we would need to be limited in scope if we're limited in time. The other thing is that I reviewed the Boards and Commissions handbook, and if for some reason someone is trying to hijack the commission or something like that, commission members can be removed. So I think that with those two limitations, that council should not be able to limit the scope of what the commission does. And that's my opinion so far. Any opinion, Mr. Sutton?
No, we talked about it, and you brought up some specifics on it. I'm just not going to go with them right now, but I agree that if it's allowed, yes, that's I don't see any point in limiting what we need to do, or at least directionally going to do.
So, does anybody have any comment on that?
I would agree.
Just a little clarification, you said something about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying we're limited only 6 months for the review, this board?
That is correct.
Are you suggesting possibly expanding that?
I am not suggesting expanding that. I'm saying that the scope is limited by that time limit.
Right.
And so I think that citizens, have the right to bring up issues in our foundational documents. And so I think that is, I think allowing the Charter Review Commission to not be limited in scope by the City Council is important.
So if we can get through more than what we've been told to focus on, and we've been efficient, we have extra time, we should be allowed to do it, is what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying, but I don't believe that's going to be able to happen this time. I believe what's going to happen, and Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, we are going to make a recommendation to City Council that the scope not be limited to what the City Council says, and then that is going to go to City Council. They can accept it or reject it and put it on ballot.
If that is what your recommendation is, yes. But you're talking about two different things. So one is the time frame for the commission, and one is the scope. So those are two separate things.
Correct.
So, which I've got, I just want to be clear.
I'm not suggesting we change the time limitation at all.
I think she was using it as an example of a limitation that already exists. We're limited by time.
So would the recommendation of the commission be that you take away that 6-month time limit?
No, ma'am. The recommendation would be that the first sentence says, the City Council shall determine the scope of the review by the commission. My recommendation would be that the City Council calls for a commission review, and if there are particular issues that they need to be addressed, include those, but not say that, to me, the way this reads is they shall determine the scope. And that means I'm not allowed to go outside of that scope.
That's a correct interpretation. The shall is you must.
Yes. So my recommendation would be that we change, the City Council will call a commission, recommend items for review, and then the commission will have 6 months to do their work.
Plus they could add others if they want
Yes, so they could, I'm not talking about changing the time scope, just,
to. Right.
and I'm not presenting this right now for a vote, I'm just giving you my opinion so that you can consider it,
Be thinking about it.
be thinking about it. So that's my subcommittee report.
Okay, but you specifically mentioned the 6 months, so that's where I got confused. You're not talking about the time frame.
No, ma'am.
So did you want to, while we're there, did you want to talk about the time frame? Because 6 months could be limiting. It could recommend that you make it like the other ad hoc committees to where it's appointed and then your term is up and you're done.
That would be a discussion point that we should have.
I mean, sometimes it's going to be limited because you're putting something before an election. You're going to have a limitation because it has to be on the ballot for a certain period of time before the election itself. So there might have to be limitations in some cases.
Is the state law only allows us to do it every 2 years, right? Is that the state law? Is that charter?
Only as frequently as every 2 years, but you must every 5.
Okay. It's a must every 5. And so, what's the history of that? Are we kind of on a 2-year cycle, 3-year cycle? Definitely every 5.
So, go ahead. 21, 16, 13, 8, 3, 91.
So it's kind of as needed.
Yeah,
75 years.
and then some.
Yes.
Yeah, 16 is still there. So there's 3 years, 13, 16, 5. 2008, 13, 5, and then 2003, 2008. So I think it's a violation, but ain't broke, don't fix it for them. Yeah, that's neat.
Lee, any thoughts?
No, I know that in 2015, they reviewed it, voted on it in 2016, then again in another 5 years. And now sooner than expected.
Vicki, any thoughts?
The only thing I'm thinking is if we change the scope where we can add items to the agenda, other than just what's coming or proposed by the council, then 6 months won't be long.
Okay.
Concern I have.
So we would actually be saying then, not just under 12.3, 12.03, we would also be recommending a change to the term, which is
Necessary.
3.
Right. You know, my thoughts on this is once you started this, we only had one meeting, this is our second meeting, and there's going to be a lot of discussions on a lot of things. So, you know, I believe in keeping it simple and talk about it, and then next week we talk about something else, and we get a better idea of what we really want to have the final report done on.
yes.
It's just the second meeting.
Absolutely, and like I said, I'm only asking for comments now.
Okay.
Mike, any thought? And then I'll come to you, Mike.
No, I think it's a good idea to visit the scope and make that more broader to the committee. I think it's good to accept the council's proposals for amendments. I don't like the restraint of 6 months, but it sounds like we're not meeting, it's not every 2 years, or, it's kind of inconsistent on how often we meet or this committee comes together. But it feels like it should be a little more than 6, but probably not more than a year, but, somewhere in the middle feels a little better.
Awesome.
Yeah, if we're looking at what the actual objectives of the Charter Review Commission are, I mean, from what I've gleaned so far is, we're really setting up for the May election. I mean, that's really pragmatically what we're supposed to be doing. So is there really, once you get into July, and I'm not saying I agree or don't agree, but I wonder what the effectiveness of the review commission is once you get past the election, particularly if now you're looking at a 2-year cycle, whatever it's going to be before something like that would come up again. Does that really, I agree, I think we should be able to add other items. I just don't know that adding extra time to it makes, I don't know if the view's worth the clock.
Okay.
I like the idea of the scope being open. I'm having a hard time just thinking about how the time frame would work, because yes, it's every 5 years. That means one cycle. If we only do it every 5 years, one cycle would be on an election year, one cycle wouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? It's just going to get wonky. If it's called more frequently than that, it could be an election year or not be an election year. Who knows? That's always going to dictate. We have to have it on the ballot for a certain amount of time before it can go on. So I think we're going to be beating our heads against the wall. We try to put something hard and firm as a set time frame. But I think scope-wise, I agree. I think any citizen who steps up to the plate and is willing to serve in this capacity should have the ability to look at the entire scope of what the charter says, and of course take lead from the council as to what they feel are priorities, but also be able to look at the entire scope of the charter. And we're all coming from very diverse backgrounds and age brackets and whatever, and I think we have the ability to bring to the table possibly things that even council hasn't thought about, and that might be beneficial for the city. So,
Tamara?
When you first started speaking, I was thinking, I like for the council to present the issues that they want us to review, because they're here elected by the people to represent the community. So, the council entrusted all of us, to appoint us to the commission. And I don't know unless there's like pressing issues, because I think the items that we have to review for this commission, it's certainly keeping me busy. I don't know that I could handle any more items, in the 6-month time frame. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, ma'am. Kelly?
As far as the scope, I agree, perhaps recommendations from the commission on things that could be changed. Time frame, I hadn't thought about it, and so I just don't know.
Okay.
We had quite a few issues last time, and we managed to get through them all. So perhaps more meetings, things like that. I see the reasoning for the 6 months, and I'll just have to consider that.
Okay. Mary?
This is Mary DuBose. She wasn't able to attend our first meeting, but she is also one of our commission members.
Welcome, Mary. We're really glad you're here. After hearing our discussion, do you have anything you'd like to add on this topic?
I'm actually kind of lost. I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, then after this meeting, we'll catch you up. How's that?
Also, in terms of the time frame, it's incumbent upon the council to be sure that those appointments are made to be in time for any election that would be occurring should those recommendations come forward. So it's kind of
Felicia, can I make a comment as well?
Yes.
So one thing I think that from the last Charter Review Commission that was missing, and I'm just putting this out there for knowledge, was time to follow up on what happened in the election and do like a hot wash of what was the result, why do we think we came to that conclusion, let's do a lessons learned type event. And if the duration of the commission is limited in scope to 6 months, which I hadn't considered this before this meeting, so I'm glad it's come up, it might be more difficult to make that happen. I kind of undertook that on my own after the last election as chair and just said, why did so many of our proposed amendments fail? What happened? And I came back and gave a presentation to the council at the time of why I felt, based on just some information I had collected through social media, what had happened. And extending the time might give the commission as a whole the opportunity to be able to do that. If that's something that this Charter Review Commission feels is appropriate.
I think that is an excellent point because I do think that one of the important things is follow up and see what is the result of what we've done. So thank you. I
And
appreciate
potential
that.
lessons learned.
Lessons learned are always important. Okay, so we are going to move along in where did I do my agenda? Is there somewhere, who's next?
City Council.
City Council.
Oh, did everyone get my little handout? This one down to the area. Mike, did you get one?
Thank you, Mary. Okay, perfect.
I looked at the charters of the 17 cities on the first item, which was to consider a change that allows a special meeting of the council to be called by 3 council members. I was surprised that a couple of the cities did not address at all a special meeting. I put those as NAs. One of the cities, Louisville, allowed the mayor, city manager, or majority of council members. Quite a few of the cities, if you go down the list, you'll see mayor, city manager, or majority of council, mayor or 2 council. Then on the second item, consider inclusion of special meetings in addition to regular meetings as absences. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 17 cities did not address that absences at all. Some of the cities had 4 consecutive meetings. And none of them addressed, other than possibly Saxe, who says 4 of 7 consecutive meetings, then the councilperson's office would be declared vacant at the next meeting by resolution. None of them specifically stated special meetings, some of them did specifically state regular meetings. So I listed out, after reviewing the charters of these 17 different cities. So I'm still in the digestion process of what to recommend.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Good work, thank you.
That's great.
I did look too in some of those cities, we have quite a few there. I did Frisco, Arlington, and Plano. Kind of the same thing, the only one that stuck out is Plano, where they allowed for two city council.
And you know what was interesting too to me, how many city charters have language such as, we have our own rules to compel attendance. What does that mean? And there was no
Yeah, pretty
rules.
vague.
And you're right, very vague. Where are these rules? I looked, I went through the whole charter, couldn't find these,
There's
our
probably,
own rules to compel attendance.
there's probably a separate council rules of procedure document that's out there somewhere. Similarly, we have an ethics policy that's not bound into the charter, but it's a separate document that governs how council acts, how we, the type of information we disclose.
Just let's see, one,
Laura, do you have any input on that? I know you've been a city secretary for quite a while.
We have had, an agenda item gets placed on for a meeting with 2 council members requesting. But in terms of special meetings, I actually haven't come across where they've requested a special meeting, only agenda items, so I don't have any input on that. In terms of the regular meetings versus special meetings, and for boards and commission members, special meetings are not considered in their absence policy, so that may be something that if this does get changed, that council may want to address that as well, the boards and commissions. So it's the same across the board. But no.
Okay. Anybody else have any thoughts, comments about?
I have a question. So the driving factor in this was the requirement of the meetings act that 4 council members can't debate an item without 3 days advance notice. So how long is that provision of the Open Meetings Act that enforces it? I'm wondering, we see, it looks like we've got the same provision in a number of charters. You see everyone just lacking, so we haven't had a meeting. How long is that?
It doesn't say how they determine that. It could be a poll, just somebody has requested that we meet for this item. Are there 3 other people who say yes? And they respond to the secretary or the city manager. So how that is determined isn't specified. So it could be that they don't have a violation of the Open Meetings Act, that they have come to have that information.
Okay, I'm trying to clarify. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
to be in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, I mean, the simple solution would be, 3 members, and I think an item to consider, which I'm still considering, because a couple of these cities, the city manager had the right to call a special meeting. So if that's, a gray area, then I like black and white. Then we, go to 3, and that issue's easily solved.
I guess I was confused because I thought, okay, so this is how to call a special meeting, not how to put things on the agenda. Right. Okay, I'm sorry, I was confused. And then are we also worried about attendance at a special meeting to remove council members. Is that correct? So there's two separate issues with this. So one is, how do you call a special meeting? The other one is how a person is removed from city council depending on how many regular and special meetings and/or special meetings. Okay.
Yeah, there's no provision to include the special meetings in that count. It's just the regular. And I think the rub is, that I felt maybe there was some favor to include the special in the count. So if they're consecutively missing, because I guess what we have, is it 3 or more consecutive?
It says, "To the office of a member of the city council failing to attend 3 consecutive regular meetings."
Yeah. So it feels like a simple fix, and maybe we include special. And so then the real big issue is, how do we call it special? Because right now it takes 4 to 7. To call it special.
Can I add into that, so one key phrase in that's section 309, paragraph 2, is without being excused by the city council. So it doesn't mean if you miss 3, you're out.
Right, yeah, there.
Yes.
Like if you look at Farmers Branch, they say 3 regular or 25% of meetings in a 6-month period. So 25% of meetings would include special meetings too, but I would like all language to be very specific, so that's very understandable, no, confusion.
Awesome.
And then, in our current 4.09, it says, any member of the city council remain absent for 6 consecutive regular meetings. So if one city council person is vacated after 3 absences, then the remaining council, they don't get vacated until they have 6 absences. Does anybody have an issue with the remaining council being allowed 6 absences when the original council person who was vacated was only allowed 3 absences?
Yeah,
Can I give some clarity to that, Tamara? I think the way it's written is that there could be a vote after 3 consecutive absences by the remainder of the council to remove a council member. And after 6, no vote is required. You are out. So it's kind of a fallback
Here
provision.
it's month, right.
Right, it's kind of a fallback provision so that if you're absent for 3 and the council says, we're not going to kick them out yet, and then you miss 3 more on top of that, now in the benefit of the citizens, you're out of there.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's a foreclosure.
So I could be
6
out for
absences.
December.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Tamara. Anybody else have a comment on that item? Okay. So, Ms. Shaw, I believe we are up to you and the municipal judge.
And
Yeah, and Vicki. Thank you very much, Vicki. We appreciate you too.
I gave you my handouts, our handouts. Becky did the background checks on all of the cities. There was 21 cities that
actually, there was 23.
Okay, I'm sorry. 23 cities. That's correct.
Gotta take a look.
Yeah, and I did make copies of that because she's got it in an Excel spreadsheet. It's a lot of work to that. Most of them say, they refer to the state law. So, the research on those Poland cities, the law library, state laws and local laws as compared to what we have. It's adopted in May of 2021. Right. And then we went to vote on it? Or how did that happen? 2022?
2020,
Okay.
yeah, the election happened in
Yeah.
2020.
Okay, so we've got that. We need to, the main things that we're looking at is, yes, the state law says we can terminate a judge if we have it in the city charter. And we asked the city attorney to clarify that, and he did. And so that's in your packet. Everything that's in the packet refers to the state law, the definitions of the government code, the general provisions of the municipality, so that you can see that and removal of office. So yes, we can't do it if we so choose to do that, and advise the city council on it. There is an area that I'm very personally involved in, the clarification of a municipal court and court of records is adopted. And we may want to reference that in the charter. The reason being is that Rowlett is both. As my understanding is both.
But in note number 3, the municipal court of the city of Rowlett, Texas is also known as the municipal court of record number 1, as established in '97 by the act of the state legislature.
Wonderful. And, you know, I was confused as to what is one as opposed to the other. In all the court of records, it simply means that they have to have records for X amount of time. They have to hold on to those records. So I was glad to see that. I really was. The city attorney did give the committee the points of reference. We also checked with the law library, state of Texas, and they cautioned us that that would not be enough with this library. And so I think that the Charter Commission is going to provide that final version of the findings of the present charter to the city attorney, the city manager, the city council at a later date. We have too much work that needs to be done on a charter. It needs to be cleaned up. Now, so you have the attachments of proof that you can remove it if you put it in the city charter. That's nice and simple. That's what we were supposed to do. It was not an easy job. I can tell you it was not easy. I also got a little bit concerned with the election and conditions of employment. And Jeff, you really were on target when you said we really need to review what happened the last time for the elections, mainly because you have the supervision of the court staff, in my opinion, and not in anybody else's opinion in here, because I haven't talked to you about it, is that it was my understanding at one time that the court personnel were put under the judge so the judge would supervise them. At one time, it was the city manager, I mean, the court personnel fell under them, and so did the judge and so then it was flipped, it changed. So we need to decide among ourselves, do we want to challenge that and say, you know what, the court personnel really needs to be supervised by the judge.
Well, one of the things is the court clerk and the court personnel are actually employees,
Yes,
and the judge is not. It's my understanding.
the judge is.
The judge is.
For the IRS, the municipal judge must be an employee. Now, what that looks like is determined by the council and HR, but they have to be paid through the city as an employee.
Okay.
So,
Also, sometimes the judge is part-time.
and I was going to say
Go
that.
ahead.
Yes, the, last year, when the court was put to vote, or was it this year, I don't even remember now, the community voted, the voters voted, and it passed that the employees of the court would be under this judge. And it was just a little tiny bit.
That was 2 years ago.
Was it 2 years
That was
ago?
part of the
Okay.
judicial review that we did then.
All right, so,
The
you
clerk
know-
was appointed by the
By the
judge, as
judge.
opposed to prior to being appointed by the city.
So, do we want to get into that. Do we want to, as a committee, say, or commission say?
Well, can I ask a quick
Well,
question?
yeah, I was gonna say, that is the actual next subcommittee, is the
Okay.
municipal court clerk.
Okay.
So they're gonna have an opinion based on their
right.
research.
Well, I'm lost. I've been lost since we started this. No. But here's what I was thinking about, is that when he or she is hired as the judge, and we already know that someone has been offered the job, we all know that. We don't know if he's going to be full-time, we don't know if he's going to be part-time, is he going to be under a contract, or what? So next, I believe in October, it's going to be announced when the new judge, if he accepts the job or not, is going to be here. And so, to me, and I still advocate that if he's going to be a full-time job, a full-time judge, then I think he should supervise the court personnel. He's there on a full-time basis, so we don't know what those conditions are going to be. But we will maybe next week. Yeah.
It's going to be on a future agenda of the city council.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? When you look at the chief court clerk, the Rowlett job description, it says that they answer to the municipal court administrator. Is that the judge?
No.
Because that goes to what, that goes to her, I think that goes to her question, is that, you know, if they answer, if they report to the municipal court administrator, then that's their boss. It's not the judge.
Right.
Well, I'll take it back to state statutes, which is the one we're talking about with the clerk, which is 30.00009. And in there, it says the clerk and other court personnel perform their duties under the direction and control of the presiding judge. And the key word there, I think, is and control, not just direction. If it was direction, they would be just taking their functional responsibility and not, I would say, be subject to dismissal by the presiding judge. I think control means that they can firmly determine whether they are in fact performing the job satisfactorily or not, which would lead to dismissal.
So let's hang on there for just 1 second, because I want to come back. We're kind of muddling things a little bit here.
Yes.
So I'd like to come back to what we were talking about, the municipal judge to start. Right? That's where we are. We're actually in subcommittee reports. We're still under municipal judge.
Yeah.
And can I ask, did we further divide that between appointment and removal? Because it seems like there's the two things there. Who can appoint and who can remove, right? I guess the city council can appoint, we know that. The removal is the real issue,
Right.
which is what your focus was on.
Right.
I don't think it was a matter of who can, it's how can.
So you're saying there is no, the how can is defined? I guess I just want clarification on that.
So it's my understanding, and Laura, you're going to be the authority on this, is that the judge, all of the judges are appointed by the city council, the majority of the city council. They're not, there are other cities that they are appointed by the city manager, but that is not our case. They are appointed by the city council. And that is the process as it stands. And it is my understanding, we do not, that is not one of the things that we're considering right now, is taking that away from the city council, that we want the city council as an elected body to appoint that judge. Now, my understanding is what we're talking is about the removal of the judge. And so my question to you guys is, what is this, what would the process be? Okay, so now, to recap, we have now decided that it is within the law. You're satisfied that once it's in the charter, we're good. So now the question for you guys as a subcommittee is, how do we make that process, put it into the charter, correct?
Right.
Laura, do you agree?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I did and I don't have it with me, but in the data that I pulled from all the cities, actually, the majority of the cities did have it in something in the charter about it. And most of them said, or the majority said, that the city council, majority of the city council could remove the judge. Some of them said for cause or no cause, without cause. And some of them was very specific about it had to be competency, misconduct, so forth. So the question comes in, I think we had a question because our ordinance didn't go with what was said in the charter.
That's the clerk position.
Okay. If there's anything about the judge removal in the ordinance, it needs to be taken out. That's my opinion. Because the state code says the charter is the rule. You go back to the charter. If we can't do it, then the charter's don't do it. And I don't think there ought to be ambiguous wording in the two documents. It ought to match or it ought to come out. Because we're going to go by the charter, I think.
Yes.
I think that's the rule. And what I've noticed is also, I think I had a conversation about, surprisingly, some of the cities don't have anything anywhere, which shocked me. And then one of the cities had very little, but then their employment thing that they signed with the judge, the agreement, had it in there. But it wasn't in the charter and it wasn't in the ordinance.
Yes.
It was only in their contract.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of skirting it.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Something
It's
else.
real weird the way they did that. But the majority, I think, goes back to, yeah, it needs to be in the charter. It needs to probably, according to the Texas code, needs to be a majority of the city council. And most of them do say that the judge was chosen by the majority of the city council. So I think they ought to keep that ability to remove as well.
Awesome.
That's right.
Okay, let's have a little discussion here, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what I found, I dig into things. Sometimes maybe I shouldn't dig too much. But in the state law, it talked about removal of a judge and what it entails. And that can come back to haunt the city because they are very definite about what the process is for when a judge is fired. Correct?
And that's why you've been tasked to add this in, so it's not so cumbersome
That's right.
or implausible or impossible to happen.
And I think that's the reason why so many of them say with or without cause. So they just don't specify.
Yeah, I would have a problem with that.
Texas is an at-will employment
Yeah,
law
they are.
state.
But they're not just an employee.
Yes.
That's the catch.
Yeah.
They're not just an employee, and that's why they're that big laundry list of issues to remove them. Now, the one thing the council does have currently in their toolbox to be able to do that is they just simply do not reappoint them.
Right.
Well, there's an entire process with the Judicial Commission also, which is cumbersome, but there is a process in place that's put in place.
Which will take longer than the term.
But that takes longer than 2 years.
Yeah. So if we actually specify the reason or the ability to remove the judge, we're gonna have to be real careful about the wording because you're stuck with it.
That's right.
Because if we wanna remove a judge because, and we never do, so, I mean, nobody ever removes very many judges, but if you want to remove one for a specific reason, if you want to remove one for specific, that word, thank you, it better be in that rule. Because if it's not, they can come back on you.
Yeah, judges aren't removed very often.
Right,
On purpose.
right.
We make it very difficult in this country to remove a judge because of the separation of powers. But we don't want city staff just to be able to not like this judge, not like their political leanings, not like their decisions, not like whatever, and be able to remove them. That's why it's hard.
Right.
That's why you have to go to the judicial commission.
Right.
It's that way, it's by design.
Right.
That's not an accident.
And I don't have a
Is
problem
it
with that.
unfortunate for the city? Sometimes if you have a ballot, sure. But that's the design of our judicial system as a whole.
But like I said, the
Checks and
wording needs to be
balances.
very specific, because there's one
Yeah.
city that says incompetence, and that's all they say.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's do a round table here, okay?
Before you do that, can I give just a little context? And particularly you mentioned the 2-year appointment, right? That was a thing. So previously, when the previous Charter Review Commission considered how long a judge could be appointed for, state law allows for a 2 or 4-year appointment. That would allow council the discretion of choosing, do I want to appoint that judge for 2 or 4 years? It was recommended to the commission by our prior judge that the 2-year restriction that's in our charter just says 2 years. Ergo, our city uses 2 years only, not 2 or 4. If state law is vague enough and our charter is more restrictive, that's what guides us. If state law is narrow but our charter is vague, we go by state law. It's whichever one, because they're the governing jurisdiction. So the recommendation was to remove the 2-year limitation, which would revert the charter back to what state law allows for, which is 2 or 4, which would give council the discretion to do 2 or 4. And that provision of the charter, that charter amendment proposal failed pretty resoundingly. So that's worth
So
noting.
they want, so the election results indicate that the majority of Rowlett people want the judge to have a 2-year contract.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to just throw this out there. I think the majority of Rowlett was governed, was influenced by a vote no on everything campaign last election round. And I think that needs to be considered, because I don't know that anyone actually took the time to read in detail what each component was. I'm just,
Or
that's my
read
personal
in a
opinion.
casual manner.
Yeah. They just basically watched the signs that went up that said vote no on everything, and by a limited group of people that had a very strong influence.
So we're gonna come back to our point here, okay? Mike, tell me, do you have any specific comments, any thoughts about this? We're still in the considering stage.
I think there's still a lot of confusion and fuzziness around. This is a real legal guided question, I think, as to whether, the 2 or 4 thing, it sounds like we could easily try to revert back to that, leaving it kind of open where state law then defines 2 or 4, gives us some flexibility. But I didn't realize the last election, I guess the voters said, no, we want 2. As far as the removal, it just seems like to me those that can appoint should be able to remove.
I agree.
And so I have a real problem. I understand your point of view. I do. Separation. You don't want it to be political. You don't want it to be whimsical. Maybe it's, the city council can appoint, obviously, with a majority, and they can remove with the vote. That they all have to agree on it. Otherwise, the default is the procedure we have today. So just some thoughts. I need to think on it more. I think it's the biggest issue we have on this charter review this time around.
I think so too. Lee, did you want to do a little summation of your thought?
Oh, well,
Okay, I'm gonna crack the whip.
it's a good thing I'm retired, because this took all my time up.
Yeah, it's huge.
It
It
is a big deal, and
It is.
because of the events that happened last year and with the judge and the police department, and I know the first meeting we had, I said, I don't want to know what they did. Well, I know what was part of the problem, but we will never know the whole story. And it changes every time you talk to somebody else. So, but I do want transparency. And that is why I put in this summation here is what the city of McKinney did. in their agreement with the judge, it's out there in the internet, they are so transparent about the agreement that the judge and the city signed. And you have it there, Jeff. I gave you a copy of it. We need more transparency. That is, I come from a city that I worked for so many years, and everything was out in the open. And yes, they went into executive session, but not that often, only when there was a personnel issue. And so I find it very difficult to swallow a lot of what is said by the city manager, by a mayor, by the city council members. I want to know, what is it that this community is wanting? And they are wanting transparency. You all were correct when you said that first meeting. We want to know what happened. What generated this? And I would say, no, I don't care. The thing is, it's before us, and we need to look at everything that we can to correct it. Can we fire the judge? Yes. How? State law. How do we do that? We change the charter. You know, I just focus on the question that was given to us.
Gotcha. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Vicki, anything?
No, I agree. I think we ought to go with what the state law says and clean up our house and be transparent about what happens in the future. And I mean, I'm even wondering if our new judge is going to be bound by the new whatever passed in April or wherever our next election is, May, whatever it is. Sorry. I can't keep up with it. Or is he under the old charter? So that makes a difference to me right now. Whether he's going to be bound by this, that's a mess, or he's going to be bound by what's cleaned up or passed or whatever at the next election. That's one of the questions.
I did ask David, our city attorney, sorry, I did ask our city attorney that specific question, and his response was that no, he would not be, quote, grandfathered, which is the term I used.
Okay. Well, that's the one I used to.
Yeah, so he would not be grandfathered in under that.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Does he know that?
I did not know that.
Okay. Mike, or is that a?
Yeah.
Okay, Mike, any thoughts after?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's already kind of pointed out it's a muddled mess. And, you know, the two words I keep thinking of and heard is, one's transparency. I think you never go wrong with having daylight in anything. I mean, that's what has to happen. And the other is clarity. There's no clarity. And that's, how do you just clean it up? And, you know, I was going to ask, you put in the city of McKinney's thing, is that something in your research you would say this is a model of what we should
No,
aim
I was
for?
curious because she was hired in 2021, and I thought, that is very interesting that the city of McKinney is putting out the agreement for the people to read.
Right. Yeah, but again, anything that clarifies this, I mean, you know, I wasn't involved other just a citizen as the whole nonsense was going, not nonsense, the whole whatever events going on with the judge and the police chief, and again, don't really probably need to know all the details, but the fact that it was, even as it was happening, as a citizen, not even really understanding, you know, you're kind of out there looking, you know, I guess they got it figured out. I mean, I don't like taking things just on faith. You know, it should be clear, it should be concise, it should be transparent. And so, directionally, whatever the details end up being, you know, that's maybe kind of a guiding principle, if you will, towards what we need to be working towards.
Sorry for repeatedly interrupting, but there's one line in here that I think it's important to point out, because you asked the question, is this our model? I don't know the answer to that, but the line in here says, employee acknowledges and agrees that the city charter grants the city manager the power to hire, terminate, sorry, that's the wrong line. Hold on. Oh goodness, what did it do? There's,
So what are you looking at?
He's on page
Agreement.
3 and 10,
yeah.
paragraph
I-
B, section 5.
something that refers to the city charter. I flipped pages and looked. Do I have it?
Yeah, the agreement.
Yeah, employee acknowledges and agrees that the city charter grants the city manager the power to hire, terminate, and direct all other city employees. An employee shall only exercise supervisory authority over other employees or the associate municipal judge when specified in writing by the city manager or the consent of the city council.
Is that the McKinney agreement?
That's the McKinney agreement.
Yeah.
I guess that doesn't necessarily specifically apply to the judge himself.
No, it
To the
says
determination of the judge now.
Right,
But
okay.
it is in
But
McKinney.
does it go back to section 3 then becoming, again, getting a little bubble where employee is at will and services at the pleasure of the
And the
city council?
council, yeah,
And now we're kind of back.
yep. Well, I'm,
Well, I think, just a couple of thoughts. I love these topics, obviously, for obvious reasons. I'm an attorney for y'all that you don't know. So it's pretty clear we can do this. I think the question is, should we do it? Once we decide if we should do it, what does that look like? The reason in asking, you were talking about what happened with the judge before and why we don't want to know, because you can craft a very narrow provision if you want to do something, if you want to be able to terminate under certain circumstances, rather than have it be really broad. And also to make sure that we would be doing this for the right reasons. Because I don't know what the reasoning is or was at that point. And can we do it? Sure. We can craft whatever language once we decide what we want to do. It's really a matter of do we want to do that? Do we want to unseparate powers?
Well, I'm going to raise this point. So I sent this out earlier today. My apologies. So under the U.S. Constitution, it is the legislature that removes judges. It's the House. The House impeaches. The Senate holds a trial and by 2/3 vote removes the judge. It's happened 9 times in history. Although in 3 of those cases, after impeachment, the judge resigned because they were convicted. In the municipal case, the city council is the legislature. We don't have the advantage of having a bicameral legislature, so you don't have the indicter and the trial. But we are the legislature, and the state has recognized it. And in the provision in state law said, the council, the governing body, has the authority to appoint and remove, as long as the governing body provides a process to do so. Obviously, I'm in favor of this because this is what started this whole process. I do like a lot of the language I've seen out there. I sent you some before I found. I just sat down this morning. I didn't run across anyone who did not have language in the charter and just the.
I did.
Yeah, there are some out there. I'd
There's
seen
some out
them
there.
back in January when I looked at this originally. There's a lot of good language to look at here, although I always take the advice of my senior advisor, who was at Bunko tonight. And that is, as soon as you start trying to specify causes, you find yourself in court trying to defend that in fact that judge failed on that cause.
Yeah.
And at least half of what I saw was with or without cause, serving at the pleasure of. So it is something to consider whether the city is willing to take that liability. One of the reasons we've gone down this path is the process under the Texas Judicial Commission is extremely expensive for the city to do that, extremely long, very difficult to prove, and usually requires some legal criminality or incompetence or something like that, which is very difficult to get to. I think the situation that the city found itself in falls more into the category of conduct that is clearly inconsistent with proper performance of his or her duties, cast public discredit upon the judiciary, or what we saw in Plano, which was conduct discrediting the position. That, I think, was...
That's going to give you so much gray area
Yeah.
Now, to your point.
That's trouble.
Now, I want to circle back to the original, my original point was, at the federal level, It takes more than a 2/3 majority to remove. Now, most of this was all simple majority. In fact, all of this was simple.
It was.
I said it was one that was, I thought it was not, it was a 2/3. So that adds to the separation of powers because it gets away from the case where, oh, we're going to run a slate of candidates that don't like this judge, elect them, and then the judge gets fired. I've seen that happen with non-judicial issues in the city years ago, and it caused the city great harm. It was the 190 issue where we had a slate of candidates that approved an alignment, they got voted out, they changed the alignment, they got voted out, they changed it again. We don't want to find ourselves in this kind of circumstance. So, and with that, I'll shut up.
Tamara, tell me, what are you thinking?
Well, I'm really impressed with all the work and research that Lee and Vicki did, and I'm going to go through it all, in the next week. It is a difficult issue, and I just have a procedural question for this commission. Are you all supposed to be speaking, or are you just supposed to be observing the council people? Does anybody know?
I think if I were to summarize what our role is, it's to be here as a resource for you in the event that you have questions. I feel obliged to provide context where I can, and if I do that too much, let me know. I won't do that as much. I'm not here to guide or direct or moderate any of the discussions that are happening. That's your role, and more specifically your role, Lisa. So if that's happening, please speak up and let us know, because we don't want to put our foot in
Well,
our
that's
mouth.
why I'm asking. I don't
Yeah.
know what the parameters are for our commission. Are we just supposed to be presenting our information and discussing, and you're just, welcome to attend? Or you're supposed to be having input into our discussion?
I think Laura might be able to address that, because I'm sure you've run into this before, maybe.
I am going to look up specific language for you, so bear with me. But while I'm looking, I do want to let you know, Lee, that the employment agreement for the judge is online through the archived documents feature, because it's part of the resolution for her employment.
Oh, wow.
Very good.
Wow.
Tamara, while she's looking that up and we're discussing that, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm still in the research mode, and I really appreciate all the work that
I have all the background research that we didn't bring, but I can, have it out that one can distribute it if they want.
Everyone who's done all the research, will you email that to me? I have one spreadsheet that I have going, that I'm trying to put it all into there so we can all have access to one kind
Oh,
of
that'd be
living
great.
document.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
Well, I actually have a Word document that has all the raw data, and then I have a table that has all the points, and then I have, this is the best practices, and I have them all in one page. So whatever y'all want.
And she may have to email it to
I'll
Laura.
give
and
it
Laura.
Yes, Laura,
Yeah.
sorry.
All right.
I don't know where we're going to fall on the issue in the long run. I do think that part of what our charter needs to specify is that the decision of removal, if it does end up going before the council, that it has to be the whole council. I think we got into a huge problem having the governance committee. I think the court governance committee became a buffer. It became something that maybe prevented the whole council from really being aware of what all was going on. And I think that that has probably created the fiasco that we saw happen. And so I would just think that, and I can't dictate, or I don't think anyone can dictate, the creation of a committee by the council. They have the right to do that. But I think a recommendation should be made that these types of matters go before the entire council, not before a segment of the council.
Or not a
That's
majority
right.
of the whole thing.
Exactly, that it needs to be so that everyone who is responsible to make a decision can make an educated decision and not be counting on people who may or may not. And I'm not trying to disparage anyone, but you know, if you're not in that room, then it becomes a synopsis of what was said. It's not the actual person hearing what was said, and I think that's critical. I think everyone has the ability to hear, and they have the ability to interpret based on their own personal experience, and what, you know, one phrase to one person might be something totally different to someone else. And so I think that we owe it to our council members, who we have elected, to put them in a position of being able to make that educated decision based on their own personal experience of the situation, not on the recommendations of a subcommittee.
Yeah. And I think as far as transparency, not only would that help on the transparency, but also, whatever happened last year, who knows, I don't know. What predicated this? You know, something at the end of it. Why did we lose our judge? Why did we lose our, you know, our chief of police? Why did we lose all these people that walked out? We have no clue. And so now we're working on something to revamp the charter, and we don't, and most of the citizens don't know why. And they don't, and when they get it in front of them during the election, and they say proposition whatever, they're not gonna know what that means, and or what it's for, or why we did it. There ought to have been something in retrospect. Some kind of statement put out by the city council, the mayor, somebody. And you don't have to say, oh, because so-and-so did blah, blah, blah. Just, it was an agreement with the city council that this happened, and going forward, we need to look at whatever. I don't know.
Mary, after the discussion, do you have anything you'd like to add? Okay, it's okay. So my position is that I don't have a problem with council removing a judge. However, the process must be transparent.
Yes.
And so that means that there needs to be a public hearing. We need to understand why the judge needs to be removed. And it all has to be in public, and it all has to be voted on. And I think that might help because I would fight tooth and nail against any of this to be done in an executive session. And I feel like removing a judge is a really, really big deal. And it should not be taken on the down low. And the other thing I think it's really important for us to remember is that, in fact, incompetent and, let's see, how do I put that? People can be elected to office that might not always have the same values and the same ethics, thank you. And so it's up to us to make sure that we have the guardrails in place so that if that ever happens to us, the damage is limited as much as it can be.
And I guess there is some kind of process that if that happens, then there is some kind of sanction that somebody puts out to that judge or that whoever it is and says, you can't do that because you won't really. I don't know if there is or not, and I don't really care. That's the HR thing, but.
And I also think that I think we've done a good job hiring judges. I also think that the 2-year term limit is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And if it would have to be pretty dramatic that you can't get something resolved in 2 years, or yeah. Okay. Any thought? Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
I did want to say one thing when y'all were talking about last year's election with the amendments or changes. I'm usually pretty up on events and things and what's going on. I always try to vote. But prior to when I went to vote, I had received nothing about no information about the city charter.
So most of those, I will be honest and tell you, I voted no because the language was so vague. I couldn't understand it, and I thought, I am not voting for something I don't understand. I'm not putting my approval on it. So I'm pretty sure most of the voters felt the same way. It's like, what? City charter changes? I don't know what this means.
Right.
Some of them didn't even vote for it. I mean, they just skipped it. It's like, I have no idea what this is.
Well, you know, one of the things that I found is the city doesn't market itself as good as they should. And we should have got more information out, or we should have received more
There
information.
should have been
I know.
town hall meetings or something like that, where it's advertised, town hall meetings, pros and cons. What are we talking about here? Removing a judge, removing a clerk,
Yeah.
changing 2 years to 4 years. What are we talking about? What's the pros and cons?
I agree with you completely, and having been on the previous commission, I'm just gonna say we were also in COVID. So, we were doing our meetings by Zoom. So it was really hard to do a town hall meeting, I'm just saying.
But at the same time, in defense of the voters,
Yeah,
and this is looking at the voters, they are busy people. They have full-time jobs. They have families. They have whatever is going on in their lives. So you have people coming to people like us and say, what do you think of this? So we are the ones that are going to be the ones that are going to market this, in some sense, and say to our neighbors and our friends, this is a good thing. We need to clean this up. So, and I think that was brought up at the last meeting that we had, is we just need to market things better. Jeff? He keeps looking at me as if to say, okay, enough.
No, I just,
Market better, Jeff.
you have the authority to make recommendations to council on how you think it should be marketed, what tactics you think should be taken, and I would, of all people, I think I would be very open to that,
Awesome.
for what that's worth.
Before we move on, I don't want to go down the bunny trail. There's a lot of experience here. I'm just kind of open-ended question, but, we just hired a new judge. We're under the 2-year program, I guess, rather than the 4-year. Does anybody know or have any insight? Does that limit our pool of really qualified candidates? But if I'm going out and looking for a job, I want the job that gives me at least some sort of a guarantee for 4 years rather than 2 years. And again, I don't know the answer. I just wondered if, some of you that have been around a while have maybe just a sense of that.
I think these two council members know how many applicants there were. Laura should know for sure. I think there was maybe 30.
Okay.
I don't know. Okay, from what I understand, there was maybe 30 applicants, and those were looked at, and then they looked at maybe 6 finals. I don't know for sure. But then it was down to 2, and then one of the applicants took a job with another jurisdiction. I know that for sure.
Okay, so thank you for that. And so as we are thinking about this, let's consider that. Are we limiting our judge pool? Okay.
Good question.
Laura, I want to come back to you about the role of the council liaisons.
So in the boards and commissions handbook, the only thing it says is that city council will assign council members to serve as liaisons to each board and or commission. Each liaison is to attend a meeting of that board and or commission a minimum of 1 time during a 6-month period. I don't have access to the rules of procedure on this computer. I can go look at that and let you know, but I would be leaving the room and wouldn't be able to. So,
Okay. Thank
email
you.
it to us
Tamara,
later.
does that help you?
Yes,
Okay, and if you would like to put this on the agenda for the next meeting, so we have full clarity, then we can do that. Okay, so now we're to 4D, and this is the municipal court judge decision. Clerk, sorry. Clerk.
we beat the judge to death.
So there, for both the clerk and the judge, there are provisions in the charter the city code, the government code, there is stuff all over the place. I'm still trying to gather for all 17 cities, their charter, the city code, and then the government code. Because for some of those cities, probably over half of them, they have their own individual ordinance, or their own individual law in regards to, like, under 30, you know what I'm talking about, the government code for municipal courts at law. They've set out their own rules. And some of them speak to the judge. I have those too. Some of them speak to the clerk. I haven't gotten to the city codes yet. I've pulled a couple of the charters, but I don't have all of those yet. It's just a lot. It was a lot. I was gathering information for the clerk and the judge. The real question there, it looks like the majority of the cities at this point also, their city manager appoints the clerk, and that's what we had before. Correct?
Before this last vote.
Yeah, now I'm getting confused, yeah. And we just have a conflict. The charter says one thing, the ordinance says another, the state law says ordinance decides, so we either need to recommend that we clean up the ordinance.
Or does it
Or-
say the ordinance or the charter decides?
The ordinance decides, yes. That's the way the law is written, that's the way 30 is written. Is that the ordinance governs.
But this court clerk that was on the Charter Commission review for the last election, and that did pass, that it wanted to go to the judge.
Yes, yes, yes. And so it may be something that we don't change the charter, but we say, we've looked at everything, and we could, make a recommendation that they change the ordinance instead. And so we just need to decide that. Once I gather all the information, I'll get that out to everybody through Laura, and you can look at it. The majority right now does say, from what I can see, the city manager. That could change once I start getting their charter information. Maybe their charter and government code and city code all don't line up either. So we'll see once I get all of that.
So one of the questions that I had sent to you all that was asked and then provided answers.
Yes.
One of those questions was, does one authority hold higher over others? So does one trump? And David's response was that state law trumps all, charter trumps ordinance if clearly in conflict.
Yes. But we should still probably clean up the ordinance if we
Right.
wanted to keep what's in the charter, just so that it's very clear.
Right.
Because should and does aren't always the same.
Because the court, because the court clerk stuff was always right next to the judge stuff, I saw most of that too.
Yes,
So-
yes.
Yeah,
And so
right,
we
it's in
we
there.
have a lot of the same
Yeah, it's
information,
in
so
there,
we'll
yeah.
share that.
Do you know who appointed the current clerk?
I don't know.
All righty, Mike, anything?
Well, I guess I just wanted to clarify what you found on the clerk, because I looked at that a little bit. The charter says the chief judge will appoint the clerk.
Yes,
Okay. And the ordinance says the city manager, so
Yes.
there's a conflict. So
Yes.
That's what you were talking
yes,
about?
our two Rowlett rules,
Okay.
they have conflict. Yeah.
So we gotta
And
clean that up.
State law says that the charter overrules, but we should clean it up. And we don't have the power to change the
The
ordinance. but we
state law
recommend
says the governing
that-
body.
Yes,
So, yeah, that's a big
Council.
cleanup. And the second thing to that is, and I asked this, I think, of Laura or somebody, the removal. And I was told they're an employee, so it's under federal, so the removal part is not a question for this committee. What
it's
it
much
is-
easier to remove a clerk than a judge.
Yeah. It just, and my only observation, it just seems like to me that the chief judge, who was appointed by the council, should do the hiring, but that's just,
Well, the judge
Without-
and clerk work so
yeah,
so closely together in tandem.
just feels like a.
Judges always hire their clerks. Like district court judges, well, I'm talking about district court judges. Federal court judges, they hire their clerks.
Lee?
No, I'm done.
Okay, Vicki,
I'm good.
Mike, thoughts?
Deb?
My only thought is like, okay, so you get a new judge and he gets to appoint his head clerk. So does that mean the clerk that the last judge had loses their job?
Yeah, that's a
Oh,
good
yeah,
question.
that happens at district court every time a new judge is elected. The judge, the outgoing judge, his clerk usually goes with him.
Yeah.
And then you get to meet a new clerk and buddy up to that new clerk. Learn that new clerk.
And so how does that work with HR?
So you have to follow the federal labor laws. You know, even though Texas is an at-will, you can't just walk in and say,
You're out of here.
you're fired. You know, there are steps you take in order to remove an employee. So,
But again, this kind of goes back to Mike's question on 2 or 4 years. Is it also a standard practice for judges to have that, responsibility, or they want to have that as part of the job assignment to be able to hire their own clerk? I get it, you put yourself in your own shoes, right? So, but maybe it's not, I don't know what best practice is.
Vigorous no.
stop me.
Well, I mean, I'm just looking at it from the employee point of view.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And that may be why city managers appoint clerks, is that could be why they did that. Because, here I am, I'm doing a fabulous job, and this guy decides, this gal, this whoever, decides, oh, I'm gonna retire, now there's gonna be a new judge. Well,
I just lost my job.
I just lost my job, what do you mean? I've been doing, I'm doing great, what,
Most judges are judges. And it's not
Until they
really-
retire.
Yeah, until they retire, yeah. But, I mean, it's the same if you work in a law firm and your partner retires, then you don't have a job anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind
well,
of
but
the
this
reality.
is city government, and that is
Yeah.
something different.
But you know what, you have long-term employees at the courts right now, and then you have the newly hired individuals that are saying, I'm not coming to work if a judge is going to have the right to hire and fire me. I mean, we need to make it easier for hiring employees.
So I do think that this is, I mean, I totally understand, yeah, I'm the judge, I want to work with the people that I like, but I also really, like, Joe Schmo, oh, I've been here for 15 years, and you're just gonna let me go because, they want to work with somebody else.
The other
I
thing,
guess it's a little bit, I'm just used to that because that's
Yeah.
what happens all the time, and that's just the way that it is,
the
yeah.
nature
She's like
of
appalled,
these-
but it's just, I guess it's just.
And so a lot of the municipal judges aren't city exclusive. They
Yeah.
are judges at several different cities. So they may rely on the clerk who's in place to walk them through the system and things like that. So they may not have, and we do have, well, before we had long-serving court staff. So,
I don't know, it's just a consideration.
They might also be involved in private practice too,
Yeah.
in addition to serving as a judge, it might be an attorney.
Well, but I thought we were hiring full-time judges now. So we're
We
gonna
don't
have
know
full-time
that.
judges
They're
that
not.
also,
they're not necessarily full-time. The clarification that HR provided was that you could still treat them like a contract and have those hours and how they serve in that capacity, but they have to be paid as employees through the city employee system.
okay. Okay, well, that's all I have on that one.
Clear as
There's
mud,
one.
huh?
There's one.
It's good discussion.
Yeah.
It really is.
Okay,
I'm going to suggest that I'm going to call a couple of judges. I don't know any other municipal court judges, so I'm going to call a couple of judges I know, maybe district court, and just see how they've seen it handled, maybe in municipal courts, and see if we can get some kind of input on
that'd be great. Well, and we're not at the voting part, we're not
Sure,
at anywhere close to that, but, I just wanted to get a feel for everybody's, thoughts on each of these four things.
Well, let me ask a quick question. If the judge has a clerk here, and he's also a judge someplace else, he doesn't take our clerk and take him with him to the other city.
No,
He has another guy,
Yeah.
person over there.
And
Duties
well,
of the
there's,
clerk are
like-
specific to the municipality under city
Okay,
law.
that's
And
what
there's
I
some
was saying.
circuit court judges and some district court judges, it's the same thing. The clerks would remain, and they would track.
Okay, that's what I thought.
But that's, I mean, really small cities usually.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to review timeline and process for public input, which I do think is really important. So I would like to have, I know all of our meetings are public meetings and people can always come, but Lori, do we want to have any sort of, not a town hall, but do we, is there any other thing that we need to do to alert the public that we are looking for public input?
So that's what this agenda item is, posing the question to you all. And work backwards from the timeline. So in January, you'll be presenting your recommendations to council. So by January, end of December, you need to have all of your recommendations in place, which includes any input that you've received from the public. So December, that needs to be completed. So you've got October and November, beginning of December. So you've got Thanksgiving and you've got Christmas coming up to that. So how you want to do that, how you elicit public input, whether it be a town hall meeting, is up to you all, how you want to do that.
So what are some of the options that we would have? We could ask for, is there a survey we could do? We could do a town hall? Could we do something on the Friday at 5 or the mayor's update? Or maybe Blake could talk about it in November?
So, right now we have, yes, you can do whatever you all want to do. We can make it happen. I will tell you that there's a survey running now from the CIP task force regarding city facilities. There will be a city survey coming out soon regarding trash, because it will be time to change the trash contract. And then, so I know those two things right now. Then the mayor's spotlight tends to be specific, and one of those upcoming will be trash, I believe. So whether or not there's room for more things, debatable, certainly possible, but we can do whatever you decide you want to do.
What if we had some kind of like a video thing done? I know we've got Drew at our disposal, I don't want to say disposal, but as a resource that we could possibly do sort of an informational format, just video clips of our recommendations and why and what the process was that went into that.
So that's the thing. When you want to receive public input, do you want to finalize your recommendations and get public input on that? Do you want to get public input before you make your final recommendations? So that's one of the things that you have to determine, when you want to get that public input. And then when you determine that, then we can determine what that looks like.
It's like a can open worms everywhere situation though, because, I mean, look, just in the room of this
Yeah.
small group of people, but the amount of questions and, concerns that have come up, I hesitate to even go there, because.
The questions would have to be really easily understood,
Oh,
understood
yes.
to get anything that's valuable at all.
These are not easy to understand questions.
Yeah, they're not. Several of us in this room are on the community task force, investment program task force. And those are easy questions, 1 through 6. What do you want? Animal shelter? Police station? I mean, easy.
These
right?
do not lend themselves
And
to a
even that is hard.
They do not lend
Really good
themselves to a
data.
survey.
You know, we're sitting here trying to add, like, to your point, we're talking about, we're really talking in depth, and I don't want to say I'm confused, I'm not confused, but I'm chewing on a lot of stuff, you know what I mean? And I think unless you can just boil it down to where it's just, you know, who should fire the judge, you know, or something just, I mean, really simple.
It would almost have to be multiple choice. So
Yeah,
what would
it
you
just-
prefer as far as
Yeah,
the firing process on a municipal judge? A, B, C, you know?
The problem is you gotta take, you gotta give them the option though to go against the Texas code.
Yeah.
That can't be.
Oh, it can't, yeah, so, yeah, you're right.
So I'm wondering if you want it before we have a final recommendation. Do we just want to say in some way?
I was gonna
we're
say the
gonna look at
other,
this?
because there are so many moving pieces to that. Maybe you want to come to your final conclusions and recommendations, and then provide that information to the public to get feedback, not necessarily input to decisions, but this is what we're gonna propose to council. What are your thoughts?
That's what I was thinking. I mean, we'd have the October and November meetings to kind of firm up what we want to put out there in December to really decide, this is what we propose. And then put that out there, get feedback, just to clean that up and get any suggestions on that.
Well, and it might also help identify areas of misconception as to what we're saying and how it's being interpreted. Because
Agreed. And then
That happens,
finalize in January
Yeah.
what we send to council, and then council decides in February. So that's a pretty decent timeline if we have December to kind of the rough draft, if you will. We're done, this is what we think we're gonna put forward, what do you guys think? And then
And
put that
then
forward.
when we're closer, should we not maybe think about putting it on the website and say, okay, these are gonna be in the election, blah, 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 is this, whatever is this, so that when they go into the election, they know, you know.
Well,
put
we
it
won't
on
know
social
what
media.
actually goes to the election until February when it goes to council,
Right.
and they vote on what we've
they
given
want.
them.
Yeah.
Can you give me those dates again?
Yeah.
The January, February?
January is when you would present your final recommendations to council. And then February,
January which?
either 3rd or 17th, or a special meeting.
Mhm.
It's 90 days.
17th is your couple.
No, this is just for
January.
recommendations. And then the election would be called either February 7th, or between the 7th and the 21st. I'd have to look at the specifics, because it's the number of days prior to the election. But special election called in February.
Okay, so if we presented on the 17th of January, if we presented our resolutions to council, that gives them enough time to decide to get it onto the ballot.
So
But
if
does
you want to
it
do
go up
that,
to-
more than likely, it would be a special meeting, because that would enable council to get your recommendations and then discuss what they wanted to do at that meeting, and then call in February. Because if you present at the 17th, that doesn't give them another time to
Yeah.
discuss.
Right.
So more than likely, it would be a special meeting in January. If you don't present on the 3rd, and then the 17th they can discuss, then it would be a special meeting in January.
Well, so how would y'all feel about being able to present on the 3rd?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when we have that. Yeah, no, I agree. I like deadlines.
I like a deadline.
I like hard deadlines.
Pressure.
Okay, so if we are going to decide, we have to decide, so if we're going to present on the 3rd, that means that we have to have a final presentation on the December Monday meeting.
Now, this may mean that you have more than your once-a-month meeting.
Yeah.
I would think that that would be the case. if we have to have, somebody has to have time to put the presentation together. So I guess the question I'm asking right now is, what date do you feel like we will be ready to vote on what our recommendation is going to be?
So I will tell you, for the January 3rd meeting, your information has to be complete by December 14th.
There we go.
But you're saying we have an option of a special meeting in January, is that what I heard?
Yes.
For the purpose of maybe just considering our recommendation?
Presenting your recommendations and then to then have the discussion about it.
We should push it out a little further from January 3rd.
This is the 14th, just because that's how much time you need to get an agenda item on this? Or
No,
what drives
for
that date?
agenda items for the January 3rd meeting, those staff reports are due on December 15th
Okay,
because
yeah.
of Christmas.
Yeah,
So which means I would have to have that information from you all by the 14th so I can create the staff
Okay,
report
yeah,
and
okay.
accompanying information.
So that means that on our 28th meeting, that we have to be ready.
We don't have December and November scheduled yet
Okay.
For council.
for you
No,
or
for
for us. We only have October.
Okay, so if we're going to have, correct me if I'm wrong, we need to have a decision
By December 14th.
by December 14th.
If we go with the January 3rd.
If we go with the January 3rd.
I mean, it's an if. I mean, we could push it out and do a special, and that would give us maybe more time. Right.
And a special,
Just like, not much, because you've got Christmas and New Year's, and
So a special meeting wouldn't be like at the end of January. You couldn't push it out that far, okay?
no.
It feels like we have 2 more meetings maybe in October, maybe 2 in November, and the December is vote time. First week in December, we're voting what we're going to recommend for the January meeting.
yes.
That gives, so if we did that on the 3rd, say the 5th of December, we came together and voted on it, then it would just be a matter of putting that in some kind of presentation for the council. So that's 5 meetings, assuming we can do 2 and 2.
What do you already have for October?
24th.
24th.
Between here and November, we should be able to figure out what we want to do, and what we want it to look like, at least preliminarily.
Yes. Okay, so if we have a meeting, so we're looking at, what are we, in October, we're looking at the 10th and the 24th?
We are scheduled for the 24th.
So you're saying you want to add a meeting on the 10th? No, I'm saying,
I cannot make meetings.
Or the subcommittees have to do a really good job of getting together and getting things nailed down to present to the committee to avoid a second meeting, or full meeting.
Good idea.
so by the 24th, you need to have your recommendation of what the resolution, you need to decide what you are going to recommend to the committee about the judge, the clerk, the scope,
On the 24th of
October.
okay.
That's the next meeting.
Mhm.
We have to have the recommendation done now.
Yes.
I like that.
And the wording that we would want to, the wording that you would want to have. And that would give us, if we needed to, if we couldn't come to an agreement, I mean, so we're at 7:10 now. And so that means the amount of time that we would have to talk about the judge would be about the same time we've talked about it so far.
So my recommendation would be for the subcommittees to provide the information to me by Thursday the 20th, so that way I can send it to you all with the agenda on the 21st, for the
Right.
24th meeting.
You know,
They have a lot of festivals in downtown Rowlett, and they're very well attended. I mean, what if we set up a booth, you know, and a couple of us, you know, were out there just, you know, talking to the people and see, you know, just gathering their thoughts and try to, you know, keep it concise.
This is an open carry state. I'm just saying.
The meeting's the 24th or the 25th.
24.
The 24th, Monday the 24th.
Cameron, I believe that's something the CIP task force has done. We might ask some of those other guys if they've been successful with that effort.
Oh, okay.
You know, I see this kind of in a couple of parts. I see between now and the January meeting with the council, more of an educational, informing the public. This is what the committee's, you know, considering. No decisions have been made. We're considering these items and just educate. Get them prepared. I don't know how that looks, but I don't think it's a survey. Maybe it is talking to people at these
Just talk.
events, but you have to be very careful too, I think, because we don't really have any decisions yet. Then I think when we go to council with our recommendations, we can do another education of this is what we're recommending. You might want to come to the meetings, maybe we get an opportunity to speak at that meeting, I don't know. And we get a feel there, who's interested in advance of the actual election.
I would only caution against publishing too much information about what the Charter Review Commission is recommending, because council may go a different direction than what's recommended.
That's right.
Can we just say that this is under this is under consideration and just say what they are? The different, rather than say specifically what we're talking about? Like, you know, these are the four.
I mean, is your presentation that you did, I mean, that's probably the one you gave us. Would that be a trim down? That's just the thing that we share?
Oh,
Or is that?
The thing he did was after though. It was afterwards.
No, I think he's talking about the one that I gave you guys at the last meeting.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the one that we did.
Something
Right.
scaled.
I would advocate you guys come up with your recommendations and bring those out, get feedback, and be prepared to change your recommendations based on feedback.
For the October, and then we can tweak at the October meeting and see where we need to go from there, whether it's solicit opinions from the public or work on what we have. So.
If I'm not mistaken, the council's going to want to have this first in the work session, presentation in the work session, go through and have our discussion, and then there'd be a period where the ordinance to call the election will be prepared and have all the final language in it, and that's what we have to have.
That would be February.
Okay, so that just sounded like completely different than what we were just talking about. So we have two options. Number one option is we can make our we can come to a consensus in October what our recommendations are going to be. So that means that the committees have to get their resolutions or what I am recommending and present to this board, and we'll have that decided by October 24th. Now, then we would move forward with that and bring that to the city council on the 3rd. But that November, yes.
So you got an extra month.
But the November and December is when we're going to be talking about or informing the public and asking their recommendations on what we are recommending.
Yeah, but I
Input,
think
no recommendations, input.
Yes.
But I think what Brian said, because last time when you bring everything back and you go, oh, look what we did, look, it's so beautiful. Because you got it all prepared. You're like, oh, look, we decided. And everybody's like, no, that's trash. You're going to redo that. And so it's building in that buffer to have to redo it after we come to this meeting. Everybody decides what it really should look like for real. And then we'll do that.
Or not.
Or not, yeah. Because it's what
Yeah.
happens. It's,
So you're saying November will be that time that people are gonna say, "Rah." Or when, I don't understand.
I think it would be November, but we won't know. I mean, if we all come together on the 24th and everybody's like, oh, everybody's language is great, we all love that, then we can go forward. If there still has to be tweaks to be made, then we'll have to go and make tweaks and come back. So I don't think we'll know until October, so maybe we leave that open and plan for everything, all the info to be rock solid by December 14th. And what we do in November is just kind of up in the air depending on what happens in October. And give us something to play, because we can have one meeting or 2 meetings or whatever we need to do in November also.
So we will plan for sure to have a meeting on the 28th of November.
Bring cake, that's my birthday.
Woohoo!
Aw.
Perhaps pencil in the 14th in case we need to.
I would say plan on meeting on the earlier one
Say
and have the 28th as a backup.
Oh,
I mean, you haven't put anything down for November, right?
That's correct. We need
So what
to
if we
schedule
made-
November.
What if we made November the 14th with the
That's-
28th
yeah.
sort of as a backup? That
that's a
way,
good idea.
So
because we may not decide until the night of the 14th, we need another night.
do you want to have a public meeting to present your recommendations?
No.
Or we take it.
They're
to
all
the-
public though.
Correct. And this recording will be posted online. But do you want to present your recommendations to the public before you present them to council in a public meeting?
Of what nature? I guess I'm looking for like a,
Do you want to have like a town hall? This is what we've been charged with. This is this is going to be our recommendation to council. What are your thoughts? And then you can record that, you can put it online, take public input by this date and have a cutoff, and then take that information, and when you meet again after that, you have that information and either tweak or not. And then finalize.
half of me says yes, because I like the idea of the transparency, but the dynamics of the time frame, I'm like, no one's gonna come. I mean,
Because
it's holiday
Yeah,
season
that's the
and
holiday
everything else
season.
going on, I just don't see it being that.
And if you, so you have your meeting on the 24th, you have the 2 first weeks of November that you could do something.
Situation out there like they did with vice judge.
Jeff, how did y'all do it last time?
On a wing and a prayer, I feel.
Yes, I feel like we were.
COVID made
December,
everything
January.
incredibly difficult. I don't know how much real communication we were able to get out, and it was very difficult because I almost felt like we were in competition with the Community Investment Advisory Board. And there was like, they took a lot of the attention, and they got a mailer about the bond, right? We didn't get a mailer on the chart, and it's not a competition, obviously, but I just feel like more energy was put into ensuring the bond passed as opposed to getting the charter election marketed well.
Well, and there was also something else that I think we need to really make sure doesn't happen this time around, is that there were propositions for the bond and there were propositions for the charter, and they were all A, B, C, T. So everyone was talking about Proposition A, but you vote no on A, vote no on A, vote no on A. Well, the charter had an A, the charter had a B, the charter had a C, the charter had a D, which is why I said earlier that it was vote no on everything. And that's kind of what happened, the message got out about these things. I mean, just letters versus numbers next time if there's,
You can't do numbers, it has to be letters.
well, can you do the next letters in the alphabet, like G, H, U, D?
But, no, we don't have
So,
a bond.
I don't know, I think it would
Possibly
be,
would.
Oh,
So, for the ballot, it was special charter amendment election
right.
propositions, special bond election propositions.
Right.
So, put the information out there. So, anyway, for the 2016 charter, there was a public meeting, and it was videotaped to be shown, to be streamed and seen later.
I recall.
I think we
some,
should give the public the opportunity for it.
I recall the topic.
The question, I think, is
The
when.
mayor do a
At the-
video town hall that people could post questions. They didn't have to come in, they could post questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was like, yeah, should do like a Facebook Live type of thing with Drew and questions could be asked, like typed out.
Say the other way that I was able to generate some, to win the competition in information, because I was chair of CIAB at the time, was to get the agendas out on Facebook before the meeting. I know Rob Rose did that a lot with the senior advisory board, just getting them out, and it, you know, 'cause people don't go to the city website and look up what's the latest agenda unless they have a particular interest. Getting it out on Facebook where it pops up as a notification, they may, if they're really bored, dial in and have a look.
So we are talking about public input to us. There's also the opportunity for people, they will have the opportunity to give public input to council. So I don't know if that clarifies anything for anybody, but those are the two things. I feel like, to some degree, I feel like the input to us is going to be kind of lost because it is the holiday season. But input to city council, if we did it on that first meeting in January, they would have the opportunity to give council their feedback.
So just limit it to feedback to the council.
I don't know, I think that is an option, but I really, really would like to have some sort of public meeting for us to have people's input as well.
Yeah.
I would too.
Well, is that something that we could decide at the 24th?
Well, you've got a narrow window because you've got to publicize it. So what about Monday the 7th?
Well, it's not that narrow of a window. I mean, it's October 24th to December 14th when our info needs to be solidified. Well, that's a good window.
But
I just don't know that we're gonna be ready by the 24th to move forward. That's my only
That's
concern.
kind of tight.
Yeah, I was thinking if we met again, maybe on October 10th, and I know that's putting more time on people's plates and stuff, but I just don't want to go facing the public with less than a lot of answers to a lot of questions, and I just don't feel I have a grasp on all this information. It's like drinking from a fire hydrant, you know?
We have a
There's a lot to.
CIP meeting. We have a CIP meeting the 10th.
Okay.
So put a meeting for October 10th.
So the company-
No, she's got a CIP, she
She's
says.
got something else.
She's got something else.
Lisa, you had made mention of kind of deferring input to council. The only caveat to that is, a lot of people really, you mentioned more attention being on it, right? A lot of people won't be paying attention in January. They're going to be paying attention as March and April get a lot closer and the election's coming up. And you would really be, your feedback then is literally that work session where you guys present and we discuss, and then it goes on a staff report for the next meeting to get put on the ballot. So,
There's really no chance for the input to make a difference.
well, not necessarily. I mean, council would take the input that was given for that agenda item, but that's your one window. It's literally at that agenda item, people that come and speak. If nobody comes and speaks, then there's no input.
So if we wanted to do a public input meeting, it would have to be in November. And it would probably need to be that second week, the 7th through the 12th, the 7th through the 11th, or the 14th through the 18th. So I think we'll have to call a vote on this. Okay? So, would anybody like to make a motion about having a public input meeting for people to give us input before we make a decision?
This would be a recommendation,
A
not
recommendation.
an official vote.
When are city council meetings that month? The 6th and the 20th?
The 1st and the 15th. November?
Oh, November, I'm looking at December. Like, oh, whoa, wait, okay, I'm looking at it.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the CRC has a public input meeting on Monday, November 28th.
on Monday, November 28th.
At what, 6:30 PM?
I thought we were meeting on the 14th of November or 28th being the backup. We needed to go to another meeting to make a decision. So the subcommittee, we're going to meet in October. And by the 14th, we're going to be ready to kind of vote on the recommendations. With the 28th as the backup, if we don't get it done, maybe the municipal judge is an outlier, I don't know. And so the 28th is a hard deadline to get it all done. So if we're going to try to do a public meeting, it seems to me that we need to make it the 14th, that meeting date we have, or the 7th. Prior to that, we're going to try to factor that in. I think the 28th may be too.
I think that's too late, too close to Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah, that follows the Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be tough. I hope we don't have to meet on the 28th, personally.
Okay, so do I have a second for the motion on the floor to have a public meeting on Monday, the 28th? Okay, I do not. So now we need to, are we going to have a second? You said it's not a motion, it's a
Because
recommendation.
there's not a vote. So just throw dates out.
Okay,
Sure, dates up.
so throw dates out, guys. December 5th, if we're going to do a public meeting.
That's too late.
I would
I
say
think
the
the
second or
14th.
third week of November.
Uh-huh. November 14th.
That's already a meeting though.
We've
We've
already got
scheduled a
meetings
meeting.
scheduled on the 14th.
I say do it the week before the 14th. That gives us it gives us 2 meetings if we need them, the 14th and the 28th. What if we did the 10th?
We do the 7th, November 7th is the previous Monday, then the 14th the following week.
Can't do the second Thursday.
Oh, no,
No, we
Monday.
can't.
I said the 10th, so that's what
Oh.
you're referring to, yeah.
What
if we did the 7th?
The 7th.
That's the first Monday.
Do I have any
Okay.
additional recommendations, agreements?
Okay, now, I'm sorry, clarify the 7th for what?
The 7th for a public town hall type meeting. And then we will have our final recommendations on the 14th,
Following week.
the following week.
Mhm.
I'm not available.
Where would
Those
the
2
public
dates, but I can get my
meeting
info to her.
Here or at the rec center?
Alright,
Here.
Here.
We're talking about
That's a
Facebook
little
Live
different.
kind of event. Is that-
Except for public input.
Right.
The date.
It's the final recommendation.
Or he will be here on the 7th.
Or 14th. I have a 2-week trial, so I can't.
okay.
It's especially since what's going on. But I get my info to her. To you.
If you're gonna do it on the 7th, does it need to be a little later than 5:30 when we normally start so people?
We probably do it at 6:30.
Yeah.
I can do the 7th.
Okay,
I'll be 7th.
7th,
Mhm.
yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay, so we're going to have Laura, if it's amenable with staff, we would like to have a town hall meeting on the 7th for public input for the Charter Commission.
And I'll double check the date for the facility and all that.
And then have a backup possibility.
Yeah, and then a meeting of this group on the 14th.
And the 28th will be a backup.
Mhm.
Laura, you have the calendar as the CIPTF meeting that same 7th.
It would be the 7th, but we're going to be meeting before that so we can reschedule it.
Yeah, that's right, enough, okay.
And then we will have our recommendations, our final recommendations, ready for council to go into the packet on the 14th of December. So council gets it for the meeting on January 3rd. Wow.
That is wow.
Good thing it's a 6-month limited term.
Sorry,
I just
I have to rethink that a little bit.
On that one, I was trying to find it, and I couldn't. I think there may be a restriction in state law. Let me ask David.
For the 6 months,
Yeah.
but it couldn't be an ad hoc.
I don't remember. I remember reading it somewhere. I don't remember where. I couldn't find it.
I have to excuse myself because I have somewhere else to be.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Next time.
Yes, and well, we're getting to that time.
Yeah, and send me your spreadsheets.
I just have one more thing to say, since I got, this is how rumors get started. I said there was 30 applicants, there was less than 10. It's been verified. I just want to make sure.
Okay, do we have, Laura has one thing for the agenda next month. We will obviously have our subcommittee reports. I would like to have a second, one more additional subcommittee who would like to join me on putting together what we're going to do for our town hall.
Yeah, we need to know that.
All right? I assume we need to have some sort of presentation or something. We can't just walk out and say, well, guys, what do you think?
Any questions?
Thank you, Kelly.
Well, you'll have the recommendations done, and then I can do the PowerPoint, and then however y'all want to present it.
I think we'll start with just saying yes.
That's scary too.
Lisa, did you have one of your, some committees that was doing Scrivener's review as well?
Oh, we did need to do that. But we have not assigned a committee.
I usually do that.
Ah, okay.
Laura is
It
that
doesn't,
committee.
it doesn't have to be separate. I do have some notes in my copy to provide.
David says something about
Anybody else have anything to go on the next agenda? Any other comments, thoughts? All right,
Great job.
this meeting is adjourned at 7:34.
You are. Y'all are doing a great job. Seriously.